a devoted fan, and a plugged-in reporter. There is no better way to talk about hoops than that. Mia O'Brien and Mitch Northam have you covered for the W, the NCAA, Unrivaled, and anything else that involves a ball and a backboard. This is the Women's Basketball Podcast.
This is March, and this is the Women's Basketball Podcast. Whether you've been hanging out with us here for the last year plus and throughout the 2025-2026 college hoop season, or if you're just tuning in for the very first time, welcome. We like to have fun here. Mia O'Brien, USA Today's Mitchell Northam. We cover the wide world of women's basketball here on this very program, ranging from the college ranks to the W to even a little bit of Unrivaled sometimes. And of course, the all-important coaching carousel, which it is heating up, folks. We're not just talking conference tournaments. We will give you our picks. Oh, Mitch is cracking one open. He's got an energy drink. I think that's a Celsius. Celsius, if you want to sponsor us, or Olipop. We're both running on fumes.
Celsius, holler at your boy.
It's an exciting time of the year. Mitch and I may be running on Celsius and Olipop through the month of April. More on that here in just a second. First things first, how are you, Mitch? I'm excited to be with you for the next hour plus here on the Women's Basketball Podcast.
Yeah, I'm good. It has been an eventful Monday. I had kind of one last hurrah on Saturday. It was my buddy Connor's 35th birthday.
Love it.
So I drove up to DC and, was a degenerate for, the night. And then I drove back to North Carolina on Sunday while I listened to Matt Krause call the UNC Duke game on the radio.
Shout out, friend of the pod.
And I get home last night and we are just in full coaching carousel season with 2 Power 4 changes already and more to come, I think.
Hopefully your body has recovered from your shenanigans. Mine is still recovering from the week that was in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. Yes, for those of you who are new to the program, I also cover the NFL. And so to that end, I've set a limit, Mitch. 85 hours is all I can do at the NFL
Lots
Combine.
of times in bars with guys wearing quarter zips and
yes, and some characters that you would never expect to see just pop out of the woodwork at 11:45 at night. You're like, oh, nice to meet you, John Harbaugh. I didn't expect to see you here sitting with me at this very table, but here we are. So just a small sampling of the week that was.
Is he wearing khakis and drinking a glass of milk?
That's a good point. He didn't drink. That's
okay.
A good point, Mitch. And we did open a tab for him. Shout out to another friend of the pod and Mike Silver of The Athletic. We did not order him milk. Now, this was John, to be fair. This was not Jim. Jim, I did see.
I get them confused. Jim,
Jim, I did see
more normal.
Walking down a hallway at the same time, and he was coming up an escalator by himself, just staring with his mouth half agape. And it truly was as magical as you would expect to see Jim Harbaugh in the wild. Yes, but we're not here to discuss the antics at the NFL Combine or Mitch's friend's 35th birthday. Happy birthday, though, by the way.
Yeah.
But with that said, we do have a lot of antics to get to throughout the world of women's hoops, as we do each and every week here on the pod. We start with our starting 5, our 5 games, teams, or storylines. Yes, we're bringing storylines back, folks, because we have a lot to hit, and we got to make it quality over quantity, but also hit all of it here on today's episode. And so we do start with a game. It's the game that you listen to on your drive back from D.C., Mitch.
That's right.
UNC gets revenge over Duke. UNC gets revenge over Duke in a rematch between these two Tobacco Road foes. Final score, North Carolina 74, the Duke Blue Devils 69. Nice. Initial impressions, Courtney Banghart and friends. We will get to some of her other comments heading into the ACC tournament here in just a bit. But for Courtney Banghart, this was, as you told us a few weeks ago on the pod, Mitch, this was a game that if North Carolina has a snowball's chance at hosting, they had to win.
Yes, absolutely. First takeaway just from when I looked at the box score after the game was North Carolina got to the free throw line. They figured out how to do that.
They had no free throws the last time these two teams met.
27 free throws, which I would assume that's a season high, considering the things I've talked about before on this podcast, how North Carolina is traditionally all season been one of the teams that's been one of the worst at getting to the free throw line. So 27 is a huge number for them. So they got a favorable whistle in this one for sure. Nyla Harris, 9 of 10 from the line. I thought Alina Arnacillo was really good, 22 points. I was listening to Matt Krause say her name a whole lot. Actually, I think I messed it up. I think it's Arniasalo, I think is how you say it. So, yeah, 22 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. She balled out. I think she was the difference maker in this game. I think if you're a Duke fan, you wanted to see a little bit more from Toby Fournier, who, finished with just 12 points and 6 rebounds. It's a better performance from her than the first time they played Carolina. But I think if you were a Duke fan who was hoping that Toby Fournier might put her stamp on it and say, you know what, I am the ACC player of the year, she did not do that. And we'll get to the player that did do that here shortly. But yeah, for North Carolina, it is a huge win in terms of their chances to host games in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I believe Duke is probably the highest team in net that they've beaten all season. So you pick up a quad one win. They lock up the number 3 seed at the ACC tournament, so they're going to get that double bye, and they'll get another chance at what will probably be a quad one win since it's a neutral site. So there's a little bit of a wider range of the teams ranked in net that you can beat for a quad one win. So that quarterfinal game at the ACC tournament will also probably be a quad one game. I feel like if North Carolina can win that quarterfinal game, they should be in. I think certainly if they win their quarterfinal and their semi, they should be in the top 16. So we'll see for sure. I'm going to run the numbers and do my bracketology. Probably by the time you listen to this podcast, it'll be out because I usually do those Tuesday nights for publish on Wednesday mornings at USA Today. But I think North Carolina is in good position, especially when you've had teams like, Michigan State got blown out by Ohio State, right? And Ole Miss has just tanked. So yeah,
back in the Tennessee of it all, but we don't need to go down that road.
Yeah. So North Carolina and West Virginia, I think, are the 2 teams that are in good position should someone mess up to jump into that top 16.
The Heels have won 4 straight since losing to Duke in round 1 of the rivalry. Meanwhile, the Blue Devils have now lost 2 of their last 3. If you caught last week's pod, we recorded it live immediately following. Actually, we were about to press record when Clemson and Duke all of a sudden were going down to the wire with 1 minute to play. You should go back and listen if you haven't already. We had a lot of fun with that one. Are you worried about Kara Lawson's squad in light of the last week plus?
No, I think they'll be fine. I do think one concern, and actually heard someone ask, I believe it was Jim Sumner who asked Kara this today on the ACC coaches call. There is a concern, I think, in a tournament setting about their depth because they have a 7-player rotation. And if one of those guards, Taina Mary, Ashlyn Jackson, God forbid goes down or gets in foul trouble, they're in real trouble. But Kara was I can't really worry about managing load or whatever. All these games from here on out are win or go home. So you got to win the game in front of you and play to, just make it to the next game and then you figure it out, which I think is the right mentality to have. But, they're really talented. They're really good. They've lost to teams in North Carolina and Clemson who are both going to be in the NCAA tournament. So I think they'll adjust and tweak some things. It's also just going to be an interesting, next 2 weeks for Kara Lawson because she's going to go to the ACC tournament and then fly to Puerto Rico and do this FIBA tournament and then fly back for Selection Sunday and get right back into March Madness with the Blue Devils. So that should be really interesting. And a lot coming up for Duke. But I still feel good about them. They're still going to host games. They're probably firmly now, I think, on the 3 line. I think losing to Carolina and Clemson kind of blew their chances of playing their way up into the 2. But, I still feel okay about them.
That's number 1 in this week's starting 5. Let's move on to number 2 in the Big Ten. Thursday night, final score, Iowa 82, Illinois 78. I got off the plane, got home, said hello to Terrence the cat, and we immediately turned this one on, Mitch. It had just tipped off, and it lived up to the hype. Ava Heiden, the princess that was promised. We told you about a month ago. Does Ava Heiden have an outside shot at, I don't know, maybe pushing to, I don't want to say be Big Ten Player of the Year over some of the folks at UCLA, but Perhaps, maybe. Well, she drops 28 as number 9 Iowa wins this game. However, it should be noted, Illinois made 11 threes at Carver Hawkeye Arena. The Hawks were 2 of 7 from long distance. Not exactly what you expect from both sides. Aaliyah Guyton was coming back to Iowa City, where she played her freshman campaign, held to 11 points, but it was a significant 11 points in this 4-point matchup. And look, I think that a lot's going to be made about the fact that Iowa nearly was out-rebounded. They certainly were outshot, but they had timely buckets, and they have Ava Heiden, and you don't. And so I present this game into the conversation, Mitch, not just because it was the best back-and-forth affair I saw throughout the last week, but also because I think we're back. I think the Ava Heiden hive is firmly back. High fives for Ava. Let's do it, Mitch. High fives. High five, Ava, in case you missed it.
Right.
Mitch met Ava Heiden a few weeks ago. She didn't shake his hand. She high-fived him. So high fives for Ava.
Right.
We are part of the Heiden hive. And I do think that this is an Iowa team that since Taylor McCabe's season-ending ACL tear has been forced to retool its lineup and has found an identity. I don't know what position Taylor Stremlow plays. I don't know. I don't know what she is, but she's a good basketball player. And as we get ready for the NFL draft as well, in the other world that I live in, just draft good football players. Just go recruit and sign good basketball players. And that's what she is. There's like some crazy stat out there that Iowa is now 14-0 in games that she has started the last 2 years. She's only a sophomore. Ava Heiden's only a sophomore. I know Chit Chat Wright had an off night, and so that upsets the masses because she's a ton of fun to watch. But
also only a sophomore, correct?
Who's that?
Chit Chat Wright.
Chit Chat. So let's go through the lineup that you saw against Illinois. Hannah Stolke is a senior. They did not celebrate senior night that night. They had the Sunday prior against Michigan. Also, obviously, a massive win for the Hawks. So Stolke's a senior. Kylie Feuerbach's a senior. And aside from that, I'm going to run through the rest of the lineup, and you're going to be astounded because this is also a roster that is bringing in the number 9 player in the class coming into next season, who's going to be playing in that front court, taking on that Hannah Stolke role in McKenna W. I'm going to learn how to say her last name at some point in time. Heiden's a sophomore. Stremlow's a sophomore. Chit Chat's a sophomore. Layla Hayes is a freshman. Journey Houston's a freshman. Addie Deal's a freshman. Callie Levin's a sophomore.
Yeah. I think we talked about this maybe last week, but I do think that Iowa has found the formula now. Like the Taylor McCabe injury was what it was, and I think it really threw them off. I think it was an emotional thing, not only an emotional thing, but also just a basketball, like how the hell do we figure out how to play without her kind of thing. And they have found their way back. Like Ava Heiden has been great. To your point, I think she is worthy of not only all Big Ten first team kind of thing, but I think she could find her way onto an All-American team. If you look at the numbers, if there was a national award for most improved player, it is far and away Ava Heiden. She is shooting in 65.1% from the floor this year, which is 4th in the country. She is also, if you look at some of the advanced stats, she's 7th in effective field goal percentage, and she's 8th in points per scoring attempt. She's also 11th in PER. So she's been awesome for them, and I think she is the bus driver of that team. She is the one that kind of sets the tone and makes things go. And when she has an efficient night, they're going to be in good shape. But also Taylor Stremlow, if you just look at some of her recent box scores and stuff, so she's scored in double figures in 4 of the last 5 games, all wins for Iowa. And in her last 2 games, she's got 22 points, 20 assists, and 8 rebounds. Just one of those players, like you mentioned, we don't know what position she is. Doesn't really matter. Good basketball player who does everything pretty well. And Jan Jensen is someone who can work with a player like that.
And speaking of justice for Ava, let's also do justice for Jan, because I still don't think we're talking about what Jan Jensen is doing in year 2 as the head coach. And look, she was attached to Lisa Bluter's hip for for my entire lifetime. I'm 33 years old. My entire life since she played for Lisa at Drake. To be fair, she's been attached to her hip. She has seen the rise, the rebirth of Iowa from the C. Vivian Stringer era, to then bring it back in the 2000s. I get it, but we're not talking nearly enough, historically speaking, what they're doing.
All due respect to Corey Close, I know going 18-0 in Big Ten play is really, really impressive and fun and awesome. And if she wins it, that's fine. I think Jan Jensen should be your Big Ten Coach of the Year. And we should talk about Jan Jensen as a candidate for National Coach of the Year. I think she's right up there with like Shea Ralph and Corey. And you should also mention Dawn Staley just because of all the injuries and stuff that South Carolina has to deal with. And also, like, when I look at the Coach of the Year award, sometimes I look at like what you endured through the season and how you maybe changed or adapted. So it's like one of the reasons why I think like, there's a case for Sean Poppy for Coach of the Year in the ACC, but also Kara Lawson, like that start and then adjusting and tweaking and figuring things out and then going on the run that they did to win their first ACC regular season title outright since 2013. That's impressive. That's Coach of the Year kind of stuff. That is coaching, like adjusting and tweaking on the fly and just figuring out the personnel. Jan Jensen's done that too, with, hey, I'm putting Ava Heiden in this role. Oh man, Taylor McCabe goes out. I have to figure this out now. It's been an awesome job this year.
I don't want to say this next individual, number 3 in this week's starting 5, is in that conversation because I don't think she is. I still don't think they're a second weekend team. Mm-hmm. But Notre Dame, one of our favorite characters on this little program, has won 5 straight games, Mitch. They've won seven of their last 8 throughout the month of February. Do we have to also say justice for Niele Ivey, Hannah Hidalgo, and friends?
No. Here's what I will say. I watched a little bit of the Notre Dame Louisville highlights yesterday, and there was a lot of talk last week. I was watching like Nothing But Net on the ACC network, and they were handing out their yearly awards, and they had a tie for ACC Player of the Year between Hannah Hidalgo and Toby Fournier. Mm-hmm. And Kara Lawson, I believe it was after who did they beat at home where Toby had a really great game? Oh, NC State. She was kind of making the case for Toby for Player of the Year, and she was like, winning matters, and I agree with her. I think a lot of the times, like the Player of the Year award should go, in most cases, to the best player on the best team. Sometimes that's just how it goes, right? But sometimes it doesn't. And I think we're going to see a historical anomaly here in the ACC where this will be only the 3rd time it's ever happened where the Player of the Year award went to someone whose team did not finish in the top 4 of the standings. And it's going to go to Hannah Hidalgo. I cast my ballot today for the ACC, and I gave it to Hannah Hidalgo. We'll see how many people agree with me. But like going into Louisville, a team that you had lost to previously this year, and just dropping 30 points efficiently, by the way, 9 of 13 from the floor, 10 of 10 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 steals, like just kind of putting your stamp on it. That was really, really impressive to me. And Notre Dame's won 5 in a row now. And, they're rolling into the ACC tournament. I believe they are the 5th seed, which means they're going to play on Thursday. And then they will, if they win that game, they will play NC State, which is a team they've already beaten this year. And then you're talking about maybe Notre Dame in the semifinals of the ACC tournament. I will say I still have concerns, similarly to Duke. Hannah Hidalgo's usage rate.
Yep, another tight rotation.
Like Hannah Hidalgo, you can't take her off the floor if you want to win these games. So, like, can Hannah Hidalgo play like 38 minutes a night for 3 straight days in Duluth, Georgia? I don't know. And I still have concerns about, just getting into a tournament setting and like they're going to be facing some other really good teams. Like, not for nothing, like 2 of their wins on this winning streak were Wake Forest and SMU. So, like, that is what it is. They did beat Syracuse. They did beat NC State. They did beat Louisville. All 3 of those are NCAA tournament teams. They also lost earlier this year, though, but right before that to Virginia and to Cal and to Clemson. So, like, they're still a team that can be beaten. And so I think now you just get in a situation of like, all right, what does the bracket look like? It's going to be really matchup dependent. I'm curious to see like what that'll look like. And, you and I will make picks at Longleaf Swine, depending on what that matchup looks like for Notre Dame.
We will be making picks, not just at Longleaf Swine, which will give you the lowdown on that here momentarily, but also we will be making conference tournament picks. And like you said, Mitch, when you look at this ACC field, again, I think a lot of this, and not to poo-poo some of the other conferences, but and to poo-poo the ACC and then look at others, but I just look at this right now and I say yes. In a one game, if we're to like expect Hannah Hidalgo, who is averaging 36.1 minutes per contest at the current juncture, I would pick them to beat Miami or Stanford. I would pick them the next day to beat NC State. Mm-hmm. And then I think I would pick them to, at the very least, give Duke, again, another flawed team, a run for the money. Even if Duke is the more talented 7, because both of these teams deploy just 7 players, I would think that if Hannah Hidalgo can do what she has been doing, which is what Niele Ivey was banking on when she constructed this roster, that Hannah Hidalgo would be healthy and be able to play 40 minutes a night, okay. You have your proof of concept. Now let's see how it fares in a conference tournament setting. Let's keep it moving with this week's starting 5. It is time for Mitch Northam's music to start playing somewhere because, oh my goodness, that's Mitch's music. It's head coach carousel season. It has begun. The firings came. Move over NFL Black Monday, March 2nd, the start of conference tournament play, as well as several coaches let go at the Power 4 level. Give us the lowdown, Mitch, and what you are hearing, the very latest as of 7:06 p.m. on Monday, March 2nd.
So, as it currently stands, we have 5 openings in Division I. Let me run through them real quick. So Boston College fired Joanna Bernabe McNamee on Sunday night. They did not waste any time. Rutgers fired Coquise Washington on Monday morning. We have a retirement at Northwestern. Joe McKeown is done.
Which was expected.
Yes. We have a retirement at St. Thomas, Minnesota. I believe her name is Ruth. Can't remember her last name, but she has been the coach there for a long time and kind of oversaw their transition to Division I a few years ago. And then VCU fired their coach, Beth O'Boyle, about a month ago now. It was like early February. And then we also have a situation at South Florida where Michelle Baxter Woods is the interim coach after Jose Fernandez left for the Dallas Wings in October. I am anticipating that if USF does not win the American tournament, that they will probably not retain her and they will do a full search for a new head coach. I believe that is the case just because they have a new AD there, Rob Higgins, who is going to want to hire his own person. And I think that's going to be the situation. And she got the interim because she had been there for forever. And it
happened like 3 weeks before the season started.
Yeah, a week or 2 before the season started, right? So that's the situation right now. The 2 most recent openings, obviously, are Boston College and Rutgers. So Joanna Bernabe McNamee out after 8 seasons. This one was a long time coming. It was becoming a matter of when, not if. And Boston College wasted no time on Sunday night. She was at the end of her contract. It expired. They said, thanks, we're good. We're not renewing it. So she's out after 8 seasons. This was Boston College's worst season since they joined the ACC. They went 1-17 in ACC play and 5-25 overall. I think the big hurdle here for Boston College in sort of the landscape that we are currently in college athletics is if the resources and investment don't improve there. Joanna Bernabe McNamee was somebody who was able to recruit some talented players. They just didn't stay at Boston College. And a lot of them went to other schools in the ACC and helped those programs win big games. Like Taylor Sewell was a starter on Virginia Tech's Final Four team. Maria Gokdang became a starter at UNC and helped them, win NCAA tournament games. Taina Mayer has been Duke's starting point guard for 3 years now. It's a retention thing at this point. I kind of wonder if Boston College is going to – I'm really curious just to see what they do in general because I don't think, this is going to be a job that pays super, super high. The candidates that I threw out there that I think that they're going to call, are Ty Grace, who is the Howard head coach, who has been very successful there and has the Bison eyeing another NCAA tournament bid. Alyssa Craigse, who is at Vermont as the head coach. They're eyeing, I believe, if they win the America East, it would be their third NCAA tournament appearance in the past 4 seasons. And she's, her and Ty Grace are somebody who are both from the Northeast. And then there's Missy Traversy, who was the head coach at Army before she resigned last season, basically to go, spend more time with family is kind of how it was framed to me. But that Army team that she had last year, again, Army, very hard place to win, very hard place to recruit to. They went 25-8 last year, and the team that they have this year, made up of players mostly that she recruited, is 22-6. So, she is from that Boston area, I believe is still living in Massachusetts. That's somebody that I think that could be somebody to watch there. I think you should also watch for FDU head coach Stephanie Gately, potentially Connecticut Sun assistant Renika Hodges, who was just a head coach in Unrivaled, LIU head coach Neil Harrow, some people like that, I think is kind of what they're going to go for. I do wonder if maybe they kind of zag a little bit and go for somebody who knows the international game really well. And if Boston College says, you know what, we have to build a different mousetrap here, and maybe it's through just filling our roster with international players and doing it that way, because we can't compete with the Dukes and Carolinas and whoever's of the world in terms of high school recruiting. And so we have to do things a little bit differently.
Which that's something that many of the mid-majors that I cover have certainly pivoted to.
Yes.
And I would think, with all due respect to some of these programs in the Atlantic Sun, I would think that if Boston College comes calling and you are a junior national champion out of Italy, you will be more likely to go to Boston College than North Alabama or Queens, unless you really like the Charlotte area.
I think that's right. And so that's Boston College. Rutgers.
Now the real drama though is up in Piscataway near my hometown. So
that's right. Rutgers, I think, is operating with a little bit of a different mindset. Again, I was telling you before we started recording, I was not, despite the results being what they have been, which they have been very not good. I wasn't totally sure that Rutgers was going to open, because I didn't think that they had the money to buy Coquise Washington out. Rutgers is operating on, I linked to Matt Brown in my USA Today story of Extra Points. They have an athletics deficit of $516.9 million since joining the Big Ten.
Don't let my grandma hear that on the pod. Continue.
That's not great. That's not what you want. But however, they they fired her. They're going to have to pay about a $1.6 million buyout. Now, if she gets another job, that'll be offset a little bit. But the results weren't good. She went 42-84 in 4 seasons. She never won more than 5 games in Big Ten play. She was 1-17 in the Big Ten this year, which is Rutgers' worst conference record ever. So the results were not good. I thought what was interesting was the quote in the statement from athletic director Kelly Zinn. And by the way, this is her first big hire.
Mm-hmm. Out of LSU, by the way, for those of you who haven't been following Rutgers politics of late.
And she said, Rutgers women's basketball has a proud and storied history of success, and there is no reason why our program cannot return to its place among the nation's elite. And then she goes on to say, we are supported by passionate fans and loyal donors. I've talked to some people today, including one person who might be in the mix for this job. And they have reason to believe that Rutgers is going to provide some resources that will make this team competitive in the Big Ten. I think Rutgers is going to, they're taking big swings at first, right? Like
And they
they,
should, because they're Rutgers. Like I know that that's difficult for any young person under the age of like 26 to hear.
yeah,
But this is a program, and I don't want to compare it to Iowa, A, because they're the two programs I'm closest to, but B, because I think we're talking apples and oranges. But at the same time, like the lull that Iowa went through after C. Vivian Stringer departed, and the extended lull that Rutgers is going through after C. Vivian Stringer retired. I mean, you could compare those two, and you could say this is a sleeping giant. You just have to go wake it up.
I mean, under C. Viv, like this was, if you don't want to call them a powerhouse in women's basketball, you could say
Household
that
name.
they were a household name. They were a consistent winner. They had a very high floor under C. Vivian Stringer. They went to 2 Final Fours. They won 4 Big East titles. This is during the time, by the way, where UConn is in the Big East, and Notre Dame was in the Big East. Like they were that good. They went to 17 NCAA tournaments. They won a WNIT title one year, I believe.
Of course, went to the 2006 national championship.
Yep. So, like the floor was very, very high. I think another thing like to note here just about Rutgers in particularly is like there are so many really, really, really good players in the state of New Jersey. And
can we list them? Like this would be a fun extra. Maybe we do this in the summer, like after they hire a coach. Like,
I mean, Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo are both from New Jersey. Michaela
Blakes is also from New Jersey.
Yeah. Like that's just the top. Like 3 players,
arguably 3 of the best 10 to 12 players in the sport. So
3 players that could be first and second team All-Americans this year. Like, so it
was fun when Shiano left, folks, and then all the football players from New Jersey went to Penn State. Like, think again, it's been worse in women's basketball for the better part of the last decade.
So they're going to take some big swings first. I think that they are going to call and make Carla Berube at Princeton and Carly Thibault-Dudanis at Fairfield. They're going to call them and at least make them say no.
Good.
Like, it's going to be a call, and the answer might be no, but like they're not going to hang up until they hear the firm no, thanks, but no thanks. I think from there, then you move on to, okay, Rutgers, like if you just want someone who like knows the state of New Jersey and like would bring consistency and respectability to your program, Tony Bozzella at Seton Hall, like is somebody who has had a very high floor there, knows the Northeast super well. Has been at Seton Hall now for 13 seasons. They've only been below 500 twice. He's also been to the NCAA tournament twice. They've and any year that they're not in the NCAA tournament, they're usually in the WBIT or WNIT. And like I think if you put Tony Bozzella in a job at like Rutgers and give him Big Ten resources, and the Big Ten is an 18-team league, and like they might get 11 teams into the NCAA tournament this year. Tony Bozzella can finish in the top half of the Big Ten, and like so that's what you're looking for. That would work out. I think
one more scenario with you, and I'm curious if this has been explored.
Sure.
Knowing Kelly Zinn's background at both LSU and West Virginia, I don't want to say she goes for a sitting Power 4 head coach because I don't think that would happen. But she could, and she could at the very least go for a top lieutenant.
Yes, I think that someone. I think there's going to be an LSU assistant coach in the mix for this job. Okay. I've been told that Gary Reedus, if you follow women's basketball super closely, he's been one of Kim Mulkey's like top recruiters at LSU. Rutgers' president also came from LSU.
Yes.
And I'm told that the two of them have a good relationship. And so if the president gets involved in this search, you could see Gary Reedus kind of jump into the top of the list here and maybe being in the mix for that. I also think they're going to call like some of your other kind of top mid-major coaches. Like they're probably going to call Megan Griffith at Columbia and Vanessa Blair Lewis at George Mason and Tammy Reese at Rhode Island. Like they're going to, I think that's the kind of the hire that they're going for, like proven winner, consistent winner. You've done it at the mid-major level. Come here. We're going to give you some resources and like get us back to a measure and a standard of respectability.
And I think that they have the ability to do that because, as we already illuminated on, this is a program that not too long ago was at the very least, one more Iowa reference, I promise. It'll be the last of the show, hopefully. They're at least Kirk Ferentz football. That's what they were under CVIP. They were at least Kirk Ferentz football.
Yeah.
They were 8-4 in the conversation for a bowl game or in the conversation for an NCAA tournament. We have to keep it moving for the sake of time, although I could pontificate about the state of Rutgers athletics for years. Let's get to number 5 in this week's starting 5, one of our favorites that we love to say on this program. We're going to run through the latest when it comes to the WNBA CBA negotiations, but by the time you listen to this podcast, it could have changed. Brianna Stewart at Unrivaled Shoot-Around today, Monday, March 2nd, told reporters that a counter proposal has been sent back to the league, but some of the comments that have since come out of the availability at Unrivaled that many of these same players who are on the WNBA PA's executive committee, many of those same players, some of the comments, it just makes me wonder a little bit, Mitch, because now all of a sudden you've got Nafisa Collier, or she's not Nafisa, sorry, not Nafisa. You have Kelsey Plum saying the following, quote, "I want to play, players want to play. Obviously, we're going to continue to negotiate and do everything we possibly can to get this done in a timely fashion, but a strike would be the worst thing for both sides. We are in a revenue because we are in a revenue share, so no revenue to share." And so all of a sudden we see many players crossing the aisle, which was reported over the weekend that many of the same players who had voted to essentially give up their voting rights to the executive committee. So if this executive committee chose to strike, then they could. They gave up their right to say no to that. But now many of those same players are saying, I don't really, if they want to, no, I don't want to strike. I don't want to strike. And this is, of course, the same side of the aisle. Not that she doesn't support the players, but that Caitlin Clark at Team USA camp told you that we have to play. And she was the only one seemingly saying, we have to play. That's the worst thing if we don't play. And so it appears that we are there. Before I give you the funniest moment of today's program, your thoughts on this latest twist and turn.
Well, I was just going to add, I was reading my colleague Meg Hall over at USA Today. Paige Beckers apparently said recently, quote, "At this point, it's not really a negotiation anymore. Both sides aren't moving. So I feel like we need to continue to have these conversations, continue to actually have change implemented for us to move on our stance. We as players, we don't want to strike. We want to have a season. I love playing basketball. That's all I want to do. But again, there's things that need to be handled, and we want to do it as professionals." So to me, that is another clear message of like, we ain't trying to strike. We ain't trying to lose games. Like, let's get this figured out and let's get the ball moving.
Which I don't want to say that's playing your hand right into the owners, but I mean, at this point in time, you've gotten that number at the very least to move, even if it still feels like it's at an impasse. What does all of this mean? So here's where Mitch's funniest moment of today comes in. Again, we started off the show. We both talked about what, Mitch? We're both running on fumes. We both need the Celsius. We need the Olipop. Doug Feinberg, your buddy over at the AP.
The great Doug Feinberg.
Yes. He is reporting. Now, mind you, these are the updates per Doug, and then we're going to get to the funniest thing of all time, I promise. The latest CBA offer, no changes to the revenue sharing model from the previous offer. The salary cap would be $5.75 million, which would be an increase from $1.5 million last year. Max salaries would increase by more than $1 million in the first year. Average salaries would increase $420,000. Players on rookie contracts, i.e. Caitlin Clark, who are first or second team all-league, become eligible to sign max contracts in their fourth year. Additionally, if this labor deal is agreed to by March 10th, which is, of course, the reported date that it needs to be agreed to so that we don't have to cancel games in the WNBA this summer. The expansion draft would be between April 1st and April 6th. The free agent negotiation period, according to Doug Feinberg of the AP, would be April 7th to the 11th. And the free agency signing period would be April 12th to the 18th. I want you all to know that I was going to read that to Mitch before we started recording, and I said, you know what? I'm going to save this little nugget for later, live on the Women's.
First to April 6th is literally the window in which most people, including me, covering these sports, women's basketball, women's college basketball, the WNBA, are going to be in Phoenix at the Final Four. Like, most people get in on that Wednesday because Thursday is an all-day media thing. So that's Wednesday, April 1st. Friday, you have your Final Four games. Saturday is more media days, and then Sunday's the national championship. And Monday, we go home. Monday is also the day, I should mention, that the transfer portal opens in women's college basketball. We're going to be very tired. We're all going to be very tired.
That's why I brought up the Olipop again.
Oh.
Yay! More Celsius. Sponsor us, please. Speaking of sponsors, I mentioned we would get to it at some point in time. Let's do it now. I am coming to Raleigh. I'm not canceling any flights this time, folks. Longleaf Swine, Monday night, March 16th, downtown Raleigh. I will be there. Mitch will be there. The Joes will be there. It's OG Light Bracket Night. We are going to not only do a live taping of this pod and Obius and Giglio, we are going to fill out your brackets, give you bracket tips. Get your tickets at OG Light. That's OGLITE, bracketnight.com. For $49, you get a barbecue buffet, a pint of that oh-so-precious OG Light, and a ticket to the live show. Again, OG Light Bracket Night, Longleaf Swine, downtown Raleigh, Monday night, March 16th. I'm glad someone is sponsoring us and our efforts to try to stay caffeinated, Mitch. Shout out to Longleaf Swine. I'm sure they'll have an espresso martini or something should we need. Looking forward to it. And all the promotional stuff has been rolling out. And I am very excited because I will be hosting Selection Sunday coverage on ESPN Radio on Sunday night, March 15th until midnight. And then I will be waking up at 6 a.m., heading to the airport and joining you guys later that evening for a wonderful evening in downtown Raleigh.
Barbecue, beer, brackets, basketball. The 4 Bs, all you need.
Say less. Sorry, Dwight Schrute. Let's keep it moving with everyone's favorite segment here on the Women's Basketball Podcast.
Pure beef.
The beef. It's everyone's favorite part of the show. Maybe that's the 5th B. You said barbecue, but maybe that's the 5th B. Sorry, Dwight Schrute. Mitch, I am very excited, selfishly, when it comes to the conference tournament for the 2 teams that I cover regularly on a play-by-play reporting basis here in Jacksonville, that the entire ASUN tournament is taking place in Jacksonville, which means I have the privilege to call 10 games over the next 5 days, which is very exciting. In speaking with coaches who are traveling with their teams here to Jacksonville, they are very excited. They get to stay at a nice hotel here in Jacksonville. Even if they don't qualify for the NCAA tournament, they still get that March feel. Because in previous years, the ASUN, both on the men's and the women's side, you would travel to the site of the higher seed, which could mean hopping on a plane 2 different times in the same week of conference championships. And so I bring all that up to say, for many moons in the Power Force, there's been one neutral site at the ACC and the SEC and the Big Ten, for that matter, because I heard some people complaining this week about the fact that they moved it back to Indianapolis. Like, Cambridge is awesome. Indianapolis is awesome. I'm done talking about Indy. Minneapolis is cool too. The men's tournament is going to be in Chicago. Like, that's a cool little rotation they got going. But when it comes to the Atlantic Coast Conference and the Southeastern Conference, remind folks, where will those tournaments on the women's side be taking place?
The ACC tournament this year, for just the second time in the last 26 years, will not be played in Greensboro, North Carolina. It will be in Duluth, Georgia, which is just outside the 285 perimeter in Atlanta in Gwinnett County. In the SEC tournament, for the past several years now, is going to be played in Greenville, South Carolina, which is where I will be heading on Wednesday. And I believe it used to have like a rotation thing. Like, they went to Nashville about 15 years ago. They also played in Duluth, by the way. The SEC did, I believe, in like 2013. But that's where we're at. And some coaches are not happy about this.
Yeah. Tell me more about these comments from Courtney Banghart, the head coach at the University of North Carolina, with regards to Duluth, Georgia, where I've never been, but shout out to, Gwinnett County, the Gwinnett Snappers, good old AAA team.
I have been to Gwinnett County. I have a very good friend who lives there. And I lived in Atlanta for about 2 years, and like, Gwinnett County's fine. I actually have been to that arena, Gas South Arena, to see minor league hockey. It was a fine experience. And I believe since I have been there, it has had renovations and that sort of thing. So I'll get into what Courtney Banghart said, and then I'll kind of set the table here. So after beating Duke on Sunday, someone asked Courtney Banghart about the ACC tournament. I don't really remember. I don't know what the context was exactly, but she said, quote, "I don't even know where Duluth is." And then I think she went on to say, someone told me it was in Atlanta, but apparently it's not in Atlanta. And so, we'll figure it out. It's kind of a long drive for our fans, yada, yada, yada. I just want to say, because I've done some reporting around this and, been kind of following where the ACC tournament was going to go. The coaches have been asking for this. The coaches have been asking for the ACC women's basketball tournament to be moved around a bit, like the men's tournament is. Again, they have been in Greensboro since, I believe, 1999. The only year they were not in Greensboro was in, I believe it was 2017, where you had the HB2 bathroom bill in North Carolina, where the ACC and the NCAA took all of their tournaments out of the state and moved them elsewhere. So the ACC women's tournament that year was actually played in Conway on Coastal Carolina's campus. Excuse me. And so, so when Jackie Carson, who oversees women's basketball at the ACC, got this job, she is now in her third year. This is something that coaches had been talking about already. And so she kind of was sort of the point person running this. So, the contract with Greensboro was up and they put it out for a bid. And there were multiple cities that bid on this thing. Among them, I was told, were Baltimore and Tampa and Washington, D.C. But the ACC has been telling me for the past year that Duluth rolled out the red carpet for them, which makes me think it was the best financial package, right? And a lot of these things, a lot of the time, go to the highest bidder. And so, I understand Courtney Banghart's complaints, but at the same time, coaches have been asking, the majority of coaches anyways, for this tournament to be moved around a little bit. And so this is what you're getting. It's going to be in Duluth this year. It's going to be in Charlotte next year. And then in 2028, it's going to be somewhere else. I don't know if that means it's going to return to Greensboro, or it could go to one of those other cities that had previously bid on it and, that had conversations with the ACC. So we might see the 2028 ACC tournament in Baltimore or in Tampa. Which I don't think would be a bad thing. I think in the
record for Baltimore, number one, when we've seen Mystics games be moved there, not just because Caitlin Clark was playing or was not playing and the Fever were playing against the Mystics, we've seen record crowds. You also are going to see, we really talk about all women's basketball here. Don't you forget it. You're going to see an Upshot League team joining the league next year out of Baltimore. They will be the 5th team, which I've got some good numbers on that. We'll run through that another show whenever we can find a time to get Taj in, because I got those today. And there's some big expectations for a league that doesn't want to say it, but it's going to be the G League of the WNBA. Sorry, Donna. I love you. To that end, there are women's basketball fans, Courtney, in Baltimore. So
and in Georgia. I understand both sides of this, because there are a lot of people, specifically in North Carolina, who they've been going to the ACC women's tournament, and Greensboro does do a fantastic job of putting on that tournament for them. And it's been a good venue, and the fan turnout has been great. And a lot of people are like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But I also understand the point of the ACC of being like, women's basketball right now in this moment is at an all-time high in terms of viewership and just fandom and kind of spreading the wealth. And Jim Phillips put it to me this way. He's like, if people talk about growing the game, and he's like, aren't we kind of ignoring that if we don't try this, if we don't try to take it somewhere else and see what it's like? And so, you go to Atlanta, again, it's not in Atlanta, but it's close enough. We can call it the greater Atlanta area. When I was at the AJC, we would have called this Metro Atlanta. It's in Gwinnett County. It's a county that borders Atlanta. Fine. So you take it there. I mean, Atlanta is a city that has a big population base made up of people who graduated from ACC schools and who have transplanted there. And, there's a lot of North Carolina alum that live in Atlanta. There's a lot of Duke alum that live there. NC State, Louisville, you name it, right? It's closer to Clemson, who's really, really good this year. It's closer to Georgia Tech. First year head coach Karen Blair. I think there's just some excitement there. So I think this is worth doing, and this is worth trying and seeing how it goes. And if it goes bad, whatever, you tried it. You can always go back to Greensboro. Greensboro is not going to say, we're closed for business. You can never come back. Like, you can always go back to Greensboro, right?
So you can always go back to Greensboro.
You can always go back to Greensboro. So I think this is worth trying, and this is worth doing. And I don't think there were many people in the ACC offices who were happy about seeing that Courtney Banghart quote.
That's why it's the beef of the week here. On
should we talk about the SEC real quick about Vic?
Oh yeah. Let's talk about Vic and Mulkey aren't happy about having to travel to little old South Carolina.
So this kind of goes back to.
Oh my goodness, the Gamecock fans, they have an unfair advantage.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to like the bidding thing, which is basically what their overall point was. I don't remember Mulkey's exact quote, but she was basically like, "Yeah, it's kind of far, but like." Greenville does a good job, and they bid on it, right? And like it would be cool if other cities bid on it, and like whatever. Like, what if the SEC tournament was in New Orleans, or what if it was in Nashville again, or what if it was in Oklahoma City? I don't know. But then you have Vic Schaefer, who's just like, we all know when they play, they be in South Carolina, they're going to have 6,000 to 7,000 people there. And you're talking about us here in Austin having to go all the way to the East Coast. And we used to have it in Nashville every now and then. Now we don't have it. It's just out there. It's a long way to go for us. It's a long way for our fans.
I know you were at Mississippi State, but like you yourself in Texas have been there for 5 minutes. Like you cannot talk about being in the SEC and where the SEC tournament previously was.
You signed up for this, Vic. You didn't have to take the Texas job. I mean, you would have still been at Mississippi State, but like you signed up for this. Also, like if you're not happy about it, like don't tell us. Like tell people at your SEC spring meetings or whatever that you want to see the tournament moved around and not played in South Carolina's backyard. I will say Greenville is a great city for a tournament like this.
In America. Literally one of the most up-and-coming cities in America.
It's a good tournament. It's a good town for a women's basketball conference tournament.
That's why we're hoping Jacksonville can
do
a good job hosting the ASUN. Because you also see you've got the Sun Belt in Pensacola. We're going to touch on that here in just a bit.
Yeah.
You've got the SoCon up in Asheville. And so you see some of these mid-major cities, Jacksonville being a bit bigger, but perhaps the downtown maybe equating a bit more to some of those other locales. You see success there as opposed to putting it in downtown Atlanta, in downtown New York City. I remember when the Big Ten tournament went to the Barclays Center back when I was still covering Iowa, or when it went to College Park. And you lost all the luster. You lost.
Oh, yeah. The same thing when the ACC men went to Brooklyn. Like it was just like, what? Why are we here? We don't belong here. What's going on? I will just say one more note about Baltimore. Baltimore has been hosting the CIAA Division II HBCU conference tournament for the past couple of years. And I saw something today about like this giant economic impact that they got from that. And like they usually sell it out. And Baltimore has outbid Charlotte for that tournament. And so like there's basketball fans in Baltimore, and Baltimore is also in, the ACC's traditional footprint. Maryland is not in the ACC anymore, but like it is, it's in the footprint. So like that's a city that makes sense to me.
We're running behind on time, but real quick transition. Greensboro will be waiting for you. What was that line?
You can always go back to Greensboro.
Always go back to Greensboro. Print
That's right.
The shirts. I may have to get a shirt truly with that on it. It's time to look ahead to not just the sort of kind of main event, which is our conference tournament primer, but no picks this week since we truly don't know what the best games of the slate could be, depending on how some of these brackets fall. But a round of applause, folks, for Mitch Northam, who finishes the Power 4 regular season with a 3-0 week, which means on the season he is 28-17. We're not going to include your conference tournament picks, Mitch, unless you want us to, in your overall standings.
We'll hop back on that when we get some first round NCAA tournament games to pick.
Let's get after it then. Let's get to the SEC tournament in Greenville, South Carolina, as we begin taking a look at some of these conference tournament brackets. Obviously, this is one that goes without saying. South Carolina is the headliner, the number one seed once again. The other three teams that round out the top four seeds Why is their print so tiny? I don't know. Sorry, Southeastern Conference. You got Texas at the 2, Vanderbilt and LSU, the 3 and the 4. Meanwhile, at the next tier with the first bye, not the double bye that those 4 teams received in the top, Oklahoma, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, still somehow managing to defy the odds, gets a bye, at least one bye. So shout out to Killa Kim and friends. Your thoughts on how this bracket is set up and your pick, sir, to win the SEC tournament?
Yeah, I'm going to the SEC tournament on Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to it because usually like those Wednesday games are not great, but I'm going to see Kentucky play, and also Texas A&M is rolling, and I'm going to see them play. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to see if Tennessee and Ole Miss can fix whatever problems they got going on right now because it's not good. I think ultimately you're going to see South Carolina over Vanderbilt in the title game.
Love it. I love the pick. I would echo the same. Kind of like you don't bet against Christian Bale in a Batman movie. You don't bet against Dawn Staley in the month of March, or do you? Tune in for our NCAA tournament preview show. Again, OG Light Bracket Night. Maybe we will pick against Dawn, but I'm not picking against her, especially with the SEC tournament taking place in the Gamecocks' home state. To the ACC and Duluth, Georgia, we go. Duke is the number 1 overall seed, rounding out the top 4, getting the double bye. At the 2 is Louisville, UNC the 3, NC State the 4. Never say we didn't care about UNC State amongst the triangle schools. To make things interesting, Mitch, I do want to note some of these other lower seeds. We already talked about Notre Dame. They're the 5. Virginia Tech is the 6. Syracuse, one of our probably undersold storylines of 2025, 2026, is the 7. Virginia and Clemson will play in the 8-9 game. And of course, this program is a Sean Poppy program, to be fair. So I do kind of like some of those teams that only have the first round bye to potentially make it all the way, at least to the semifinal round. What say you?
Yeah, I think Syracuse and Clemson are probably the 2 out of that group that I believe in the most in terms of like could make a run into the semis. I think those 2 games in particular that you talked about, like those are real like bubble implication games. Whereas like, the winners of those games are going to be firmly in the field. And the losers are going to be kind of a little nervous heading into Selection Sunday.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I don't want to cap it as this, but are you taking Duke or are you taking the field? Because I kind of feel like I'm taking the field.
I still like Duke. I still
You're
believe
taking Duke. Okay.
Yeah, I believe in Duke.
And you've seen him with your own 2 eyes. So
yeah,
rolling with Duke. Rolling with Duke, put it on the board. All right, to the Big Ten tournament, which will take place in Indianapolis once again this year. Let's take a look at the top 4 seeds. UCLA earns the 1 seed by way of their 18-0 unblemished mark in Big Ten conference play. Iowa is the 2. Michigan is the 3. Minnesota is the 4. And some other seeds of note. Michigan State is the 7. Ohio State is the 6 seed. Maryland, the 8, or maybe that's a 5. Again, why? Listen, my SIDs, conference commissioners, I know you're listening. Don't make these numbers so small. Very hard to read. Mitch, your thoughts on the Big Ten tournament field?
I think UCLA is going to win pretty easily. But I'm interested to see like kind of what happens across the rest of the bracket. Like, does Minnesota find a way to get into the title game? Does Iowa get into the title game? And does Iowa make things interesting for UCLA? What does Maryland do? Do they have a run in them? Because I think Maryland is a team that like could probably use a win or 2 to kind of solidify their top 16 standing. Ohio State and Minnesota also in that boat. I think they're on the 4 line. So I think that's where you will have some seeding implication stuff. And then Nebraska is dangerously on the bubble right now. Like if they lose their first game, I think that might be curtains for them.
Get it together, fighting Amy Williamses. I would like to note that Iowa lost to UCLA, got absolutely boat raced, but that was at Pauley Pavilion. So we'll be curious to see those two teams at a neutral site. I still think UCLA wins it.
That was also like 2 games after McCabe got hurt, right?
Yes.
Like that was pretty early in that stretch.
Yeah, Addie Deal's first career starts, because that was option A for Jan Jensen, because Addie Deal was averaging double figures in the 5 games before Taylor McCabe went down. They inserted the true freshman into the starting lineup in her hometown, or near her hometown, because she's from Orange County. She went 0 against USC, and it wasn't much prettier against the Bruins. Then they swapped out Stremlo, put Stremlo in the starting 5, and here we are. And Addie Deal's been okay off the bench, and that's okay. She is just turned 19 years old. It's fine. Number 12 player in the class last year. She's going to be fine. I also would like to note Michigan, once upon a time, when we did our midseason Final Four picks, we both liked the Wolverines. I am speaking to you, my sensational sophomore class. I need you. Step up, but don't beat Iowa, because I would like to see Iowa UCLA in a rematch. To the Big 12 we go.
The mess.
I love the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. I just love it so much. Hilton South, which should be noted, Hilton South, on the same subject. Iowa State, shout out to Audie Crooks, had her 5th 40-point game of the year. That ties a Brittany Griner record. So, I still think that Iowa State, now with Addie Brown back in the fold, could be dangerous. However, here is their path to the title game. Let's start with the seeds. The number 1 seed, by virtue of winning the regular season title, is Olivia Miles and the TCU Horned Frogs. At the number 2 spot, it's West Virginia, arguably one of the hottest teams in the sport right now. Baylor is the 3. Oklahoma State is the 4. Iowa State is the 7. Texas Tech falls all the way to the 5 line. So they would have to play Oklahoma State. So I do kind of like Texas Tech's path here, Mitch. But this is an absolute gauntlet. You got Arizona versus Arizona State in Kansas City, LOL, in the opening round. The winner of that game plays Iowa State, and the winner of that game plays West Virginia. Whoever comes out from there, I think, might be the most battle-tested of the bunch, outside of the holy war between Utah, BYU in the opening round on the other side of the bracket, with the winner of that game sorry. We could get a holy war. It's Houston, BYU. Then we could get Utah. Also, SIDs, graphics designers at the commissioner, at the league offices, like, don't make your graphics so small either. Like, you're cutting off the U and the H. I can't see the difference. Big 12, who you got, Mitch? Our messy, fun conference that we love so much.
I'm looking at this bracket, and I think the most interesting kind of section of it is the branch off of West Virginia. Yep. So that Arizona State is a team that needs to win multiple games in this tournament to have a chance at making the NCAA tournament field. They are 0-5 in quad 1 games now after losing at Texas Tech this past weekend. But like we've said before, I really like Iowa State in a tournament setting with a healthy roster. Like, I think that could be really interesting. I will be paying attention to if it ends up being Iowa State, West Virginia in the quarterfinals there, I will be watching that game. I think Baylor is probably the weakest of the teams who got double byes. I think Oklahoma State is a team that can beat anyone and lose to anyone. So I think ultimately I'll probably take TCU, but I think that this could get messy and interesting, as the Big 12 has been all season.
It's a messy, fun conference. I mean, I don't want to say I'm taking Iowa State, but like, I kind of am. Like, I don't know. Like, you look at since Addie Brown came back, and like things are clicking. And also, I mean, if we want to talk about Vic Schaefer complaining about how his fans can't drive to Greenville, South Carolina, yes, I know the 2 Kansas schools can easily drive to Kansas City, but you go right down from Des Moines, from Ames, I-35. Nice little 2.5, 3-hour drive. And I know that obviously the Cyclones, like, it's not that they're on like some 7 or 8 game win streak where I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're the hottest team in the sport, which you can make that argument about West Virginia, who I think also has a shot. By the way, I would argue like whoever wins the West Virginia Iowa State game, like, makes it to the title game at bare minimum.
Iowa State on DraftKings plus 1,300 to win the Big 12 tournament.
What's West Virginia?
Plus 260.
Interesting. Oh, okay. Maybe they know something we don't. I know they're the 2 seed, but that's I like those odds. But no, Iowa State has lost 2 of their last 5. But I mean, one was to TCU in that crazy Olivia Miles like wild game, and then the other one was to Oklahoma State, who again couldn't get got any single night.
Okay, people listen to this podcast. If you're in the betting sphere, I just need you to know that for the SEC tournament on DraftKings, South Carolina has plus odds, and they made Texas the favorite. So just check that out.
The Big East, we love you. We're not even going to do your conference tournament.
It's UConn.
Right?
UConn over Villanova. We can move on.
UConn over Villanova. There's your Big East prediction. To the A10 we go. A lot of coaches I've spoken to in the A-Sun are very excited about the A10 tournament and kind of watching from afar should their team be eliminated this week here in Jacksonville. I'm fascinated by the A10 for many reasons. Certainly those quad 4 losses that Rhode Island and David, or was it Rhode Island and Richmond or Rhode Island and Davidson?
Rhode Island and Richmond. Yeah.
Both put quad 4 losses on the same night 2 weeks ago. So I am fascinated to see what that means for a conference that a lot of other mid-majors are looking at as the gold star, like the true north of, hey, we can be a multi-bid league. Look what they've done. And it will be really sad if they're not a multi-bid league. But I also think that it is a conference that you could see. I mean, the fact that George Mason won a share of the regular season crown and they're obviously the 2 seed. That's not to say that they can't make a run. That's not to say Davidson, who's the 4 and has a pretty good at-large bid, they could make a run. So what say you, Mitch? I mean, you've been following this conference arguably better than any other national reporter in the game.
I think Richmond is still the best team in the Atlantic 10. So if you ask me to pick someone, I would pick Richmond. But I would tell you the A10 would be rooting for Richmond to lose in the semifinals because Richmond has the best chance of getting an at-large bid at this point. And then they would be rooting for Rhode Island to lose in the title game because Rhode Island is your second team that's kind of in position for an at-large bid. And then they would be rooting for a team like George Mason or Davidson to win the conference tournament. And then you put yourself in position for potentially 3 bids.
I like it. Let's move to another mid-major conference that you've been following closely. The Sun Belt, the Fun Belt, taking place in Pensacola. This one's on my bucket list because I loved my one little trip to Pensacola. I think they do a great job, much like Greenville. I think it's a perfect little that's bad. A second tier, mid-major town, city. Great for this sort of venue to have both the men's and the women's championships there. What do we got in the Fun Belt?
The Fun Belt is very, very interesting to me because they have a lot of really good teams that I think could win NCAA tournament games, depending on what their seed is and what the matchup is and stuff like that. So you have Georgia Southern as the number 1 overall seed. They won the conference this year under second-year head coach Hannah Hayden for the first time they've ever won the Sun Belt regular season title. So they're your favorite here, but also Arkansas State's really good. Destiny Rogers is the head coach of that team. James Madison is really good again. They've kind of been consistently, the class of the Sun Belt. Troy is 15-3 in conference play. They're your second seed, and Marshall is the 5th seed. Marshall took Georgia Southern to overtime in the regular season finale. This is a really interesting conference tournament to me, and James Madison is actually a team that could be in position for an at-large bid. They are currently 48th in net. So I have a suspicion that they're probably going to get left on the wrong side of the bubble as the next 4 out or something like that. So, but I think if you're the Sun Belt, you would be rooting for someone like Georgia Southern or Arkansas State to win this tournament and to beat James Madison in the title game and hope that maybe things break the right way. Maybe James Madison sneaks their way in and you're a multi-bid league. But I don't think that's 100% likely. It's tough to pick this one because while I like Georgia Southern, I think Arkansas State is really good and I think James Madison is really good. So I'm going to go with Georgia Southern just because they're the number 1 seed and, GATA.
I'll go with James Madison because we are all Dukes.
Dukes.
Not Duke, but we are all Dukes. To the A-Sun we go, the tournament that I will be calling many of the games for. I guess we got to talk about it now. I put it in last call, but we're going to talk about it now. If you've been listening to this podcast since November, we like to refer to the Greenbrier 5. That's what we call West Virginia's women's basketball team. Mitch, please explain why we call them the Greenbrier 5.
Because when they played Duke in November in Greenbrier, West Virginia, half of their team got thrown out of the game because they left the bench during a scuffle at halftime. And so they finished the game with 5 players, and they won. They beat Duke, who had a full complement of players on the floor, and the Greenbrier 5 thus lives on.
Yes, that loss has aged very well, by the way, for Carol Lawson. I would just like to note.
Yeah, it has.
Good for them. So here on this little podcast, we've been talking about the Greenbrier 5 for months. Friday night, I am on the call. UNF, Jacksonville University. We affectionately call it the River City Rumble here in Jacksonville, FLA. And minute 40 to go in the game. And to be fair, I did not think it had reached this level of chippiness, Mitch. Like, I thought it was competitive. It's a rivalry game. Did I think, and I won't say any names or teams, were there some players who I know very intimately because I call both of those teams' games throughout the course of the season, and I have never seen those young ladies play defense with that sort of ferocity and intensity. Yes, absolutely. But it's a rivalry game. I was excited. I'm like, they got the juice. This is awesome. Happy for you. And so then we fast forward to 1:40 to go. Anaya Smith of Jacksonville University grabs the board, hits the deck. Jamison Stinson of UNF tries to put 2 hands on the ball so that it would be a jump ball, alternating possession arrow. And in the process, I didn't see it live as I was calling it just because I wasn't paying attention. I was paying attention to what happened, but didn't realize what was happening in the moment. As one of the folks in the ASUN office referred to it as, Anaya threw a chicken wing. Not a physical chicken wing, but threw a little chicken wing elbow at Jamison Stinson. Prompted Des McGill of UNF to come over, and then there was a pushing match. And at that point, JU head coach Special Jennings, her coaching staff, and the entire bench left said bench, entered the field of play, which, as we know, in women's and men's basketball in the year of our Lord 2026, if you are an active player and you leave the bench, you are automatically ejected. And so, coupled with several of those players then making contact with UNF players, we now have 3 players suspended from Jacksonville University. That includes the player of the year in the conference, Priscilla Williams, well-traveled. You may recognize her as a McDonald's All-American, started at Syracuse, went to South Florida, then transferred to Oregon, has been at JU the last 2 years. So Priscilla's out for the quarterfinal game. JU is the 2 seed. They have the first round bye. And then for UNF, Des McGill will miss their opening round game. That is Tuesday afternoon against West Georgia. So we wanted to get that primer out there before we give the ASUN tournament. And also to say, I checked 2 things off my bucket list, Mitch. I called a fight, even though it really wasn't a fight, but it was a scuffle, just like the Greenbrier 5. And because of all the ejections, JU finished this game with 4 players. UNF was on the power play, and Jamison Stinson had 4 free throws coming out of an extended intermission after the officials were sorting through all this, made 3 of them, and UNF couldn't do anything with it. So it was a victory for JU. They sweep the River City Rumble and gave new definition to that term, River City Rumble. Yeah. And then I sent it to Mitch, and Mitch was like, no way. They finished with 4 players. I said, yeah, check it off my bucket list. It happened. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. And I referred to them at the end of the game as the JU 4. So you're welcome.
I think you and I have now been in person for the 2 weirdest finishes in women's college basketball this season.
Yes. And I'm very proud.
You being at the River City Rumble and me being at the Greenbrier 5.
Yeah, just put that on the record, folks. Put that out there. We were here for the weirdest games of 2025, 2026. That's why you listen to this program.
That's right.
So I will be calling this tournament. Eastern Kentucky is the 1 seed. I will be on the call Thursday at noon, their opening game, which will be against winner of Austin Peay and Lipscomb. Jacksonville is the 2. They will be shorthanded. They won't have 4 players. They'll have more than that, but they won't have 3 of their starting 5, including the player of the year. Central Arkansas is the 3. Stetson is the 4. Florida Gulf Coast. Many of you have been listening for 3-4 minutes, me discuss the ASUN, and you're like, all I know about the ASUN is Florida Gulf Coast. That's what a lot of people would tell you, because they have been the standard bearer. They have won the conference tournament 10 straight years. So, Mitch, from your outside purview, Raina Harmon, former recruiting coordinator at Iowa, friend of the pod, listener of the pod, in her first season at the helm of the Eagles, and it's a retooled roster. They're still shooting 3s, but she told me yesterday their identity is much more on the defensive side of the ball at this juncture. They knocked off Eastern Kentucky, though, a few weeks ago. They knocked off Stetson last week, too. So they've beaten some of the best teams in the league. Can Florida Gulf Coast do the funniest thing possible and win the ASUN again this year?
This is also a Florida Gulf Coast team that beat Stanford in November.
That too.
Yeah, they can win it. Sure, why not? I think, Eastern Kentucky is like, as I've been doing my bracketology and stuff, like they've been firmly a team that's like on the 15-16 line. So like they're not one of these mid-majors like behemoths, even though they have been very, very good in the ASUN this year. As Florida Gulf Coast has shown, they can be beat. I was going to ask you, do you think if JU can survive its shorthanded quarterfinal game, what are their chances?
I think they win the whole thing.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I do. Some other conference tournament action that we love you, but we just don't have time for you ahead of next week's program, which we will be back in the home studio before our live show 2 weeks from today as we're recording this. We will certainly be keeping tabs on you, our friends in the American East. That tournament runs March 5th to the 13th. We will certainly be paying attention to you, Big Sky, because we love the Big Sky.
Montana State.
To the 11th. The Big South taking place in Johnson City, Tennessee.
High Point.
4th to the 8th. Let's keep it moving, Mitch. Again, we'll get to some of the other mid-major tournaments that are taking place next week on next week's program. The Horizon League's got the longest tournament, March 2nd to the 10th. You got to think about that one.
Is that what Murray State is in?
I believe that's, or no, they're in the Ohio Valley. Maybe they left the Ohio Valley. They're also this week. They're March 4th to the 7th in Evansville.
Okay, I can't remember. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry,
Horizon League. My bad.
We still love you. We've got the MAAC, the
MAC.
The MAC that takes place in Atlantic City, which is one of my favorite bits. That's March 5th to the 9th. We've got the NEC that starts next week. We'll talk about you guys later. We mentioned the SoCon. No, we didn't mention the SoCon. We did the Sun Belt. The SoCon is March 5th to the 9th as well.
Chattanooga.
There it is. And finally, the Summit League.
North Dakota State. But I will say that is, if South Dakota State wins that conference tournament, bid stealing situation, because North Dakota State has the resume for an at-large.
Let's get after it, Jackrabbits. It's time for last call. Dimitri's going to lose his mind because we've gone so long on today's episode. But, hey, we had a lot of ground to cover to get you guys up to speed ahead of conference tournament week. And then we'll debrief that Power 4 conference tournament week next week, plus talk about you mid-majors as well. But we got to hit all the storylines, quick hitters that we may have missed, beginning with Muffet McGraw. Muffet McGraw, the longtime head coach at Notre Dame, now a commentator on the ACC network, dropped another notes app for us, Mitch. What's this week's notes app? Because she's like written notes apps about Donald Trump. She's written notes apps about basketball players, but she just types up letters and then screenshots them and posts them on Twitter.
Muffet's on board with my take that UCLA should be the number 1 overall seed because they have double the amount of quad 1 wins that UConn does. So Muffet, well, I shouldn't say welcome to the UConn resistance because she has long been a founding member of the UConn resistance.
She might be the president. You're just the vice president.
It's her or Tara Vanderveer. Muffet on board with UCLA as the number 1 overall seed.
Standing offer to join the program and join the resistance, Muffet, whenever you want, girl. We mentioned her briefly, but since we last spoke and it happened during our recording, Iowa State TCU, which was an epic game in the Big 12 last Sunday. Olivia Miles dropped a triple-double, had the game winner. Also, you've picked TCU in our primer for the Big 12 tournament. Are you buying TCU in the long term in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think TCU, if the bracket breaks the right way, they're a team that could make it to the Final Four. They have the talent. If you ask me to bet on it, I think they're probably a team that gets to the Elite Eight and gets got by like South Carolina or UConn or somebody like that. But ultimately, they do have the talent if things break the right way. Like if TCU meets Texas in the Elite Eight again, I'm taking TCU.
To the SEC we go. Somehow, some way, we've gotten over an hour into the program. And we somehow have not mentioned or only briefly mentioned Kim Caldwell and the Tennessee Volunteers. Janiyah Barker is back after her indefinite suspension. But also, all I know is that I don't know when it comes to the Lady Vols who might be available. If Kim Caldwell is just saying this stuff because she wants to over-recruit her current roster and is trying to lure people to the transfer portal. I don't know what she's doing.
This season is a wash for Tennessee. I think they're just heading for a first-round NCAA tournament exit and then a big reset in terms of staff and roster.
But, hey, you got that first-round bye in Greenville. Don't forget. And also, you're making the tournament one way or another because the net is fake.
Yeah, they're in.
The A10 tournament is giving out bourbon. Mitch, are you going to alter your travel plans?
Man, I wish I could. I wish I could get up to Henrico, Virginia for the A10 tournament. Because I'd be up there drinking bourbon with Aaron Roussel and our other friends in the A10.
Shout out to the friends of the pod. While you're up there, would you also pivot to your home state and visit Annapolis, which now features a basketball school as well as a women's lacrosse school in the United States Naval Academy, after not only the lacrosse team defeated Florida, who has been in the Final Four each of the last 2 years in women's lacrosse, folks. Yes, we do sometimes talk about other women's sports here on the program. But then also the lady midshipmen. Can we call them? Or they're still the midshipmen?
Yeah, just the midshipmen.
Just the mids. The mids have been great. And shout out to the mids. We already gave Army a shout out, so we got to give Navy a shout out too.
Tim Taylor, getting it done. Navy. So the Patriot League is one of those conferences that still does campus sites for their conference tournament. So if Navy makes the Patriot League title game, they will host it on the morning of Selection Sunday. And I might have to go to Annapolis for that.
I like it. I like it. One final note from me before we give you the rundown of where we both are headed over the next few days before you hear from us next. Which, by the way, I would love to do a way that we could give you guys more instantaneous podcasts, as I've been prepping and I've been searching the world for more women's basketball coverage. I wish we could do an everydayer for you guys. Maybe at some point in time we will. But as you'll hear, we both have a lot of assignments this week. And so we're just happy to give you this jam-packed episode today. We haven't talked Unrivaled outside of the WNBA CBA negotiations, but Aaliyah Boston has been ruled out with a lower body extremity injury for the remainder of Unrivaled season. Now, granted, they only have 3 games to go, and the semifinals are tonight on Monday, March 2nd. So we don't know the exact significance of said injury, but you alluded to Kara Lawson and Team USA headed to Puerto Rico in a week or so's time, Mitch. Aaliyah Boston is expected to be on that roster, and so I'm assuming we will get an update on the Indiana Fever star at some point here in the next few days.
Yeah, one way or another, we're going to find out how severe it is if she is still included on this FIBA roster, which I kind of think there might be a case where she's not, just because this is not necessarily an important tournament because they are already qualified for the FIBA World Cup. This is just kind of hey, this is a new team with a new coach. Let's go get some reps. That's why the roster is very, very young also, by the way. And you don't see Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson on it. They will be on the World Cup roster this summer.
But you will see Caitlin Clark on this roster.
Yes, you will. She will be making her senior national team debut.
Will it be televised?
Oh, that's a good question. There's some sort of streaming thing.
Yeah, I think they have to. I know, especially because it coincides with, no offense to the mid majors, we love you guys, as we gave you all shout outs. And Mitch made picks, but I'm just saying, I know men's conference Power 4 tournaments will be going on. I know the players is going on.
I will do some Google searching and report back on how our listeners can watch that.
I will be standing, if so. Mitch, give us the rundown. You head to Greenville on Wednesday. What games will you be covering and providing us all the intel on, as well as, maybe some other situations you're monitoring?
Yeah, I'll just be locked in at the SEC tournament Wednesday through Sunday. So I will be in Greenville, South Carolina each of those days, watching the SEC tournament and also monitoring the coaching carousel. I will just say that it would not shock me if the following jobs open: UCF, Penn State, Pitt, Florida. So just, I'm not saying they will or won't, but if they do, I won't be surprised.
File that one away, especially for my Floridians. Many of you Gators have come up to me. You've said, why aren't we good at women's basketball? I mean, Kelly Ray can recruit, but we'll see what happens as far as moving forward as the head coach of the Gators. As for yours truly, yes, I will be on the call. You're going to be listening to this on Wednesday. I'll already have called 2 games. ASUN tournament, ESPN Plus through the weekend. Make sure you keep it locked at Mia O'Brien TV for the latest of which ones I am covering. And then we'll be back on Monday with a jam-packed episode debriefing all of this conference tournament action in the Power Fours and what's to come in the mid-majors as well. Until then, he's Mitch. I'm Mia. Don't forget to get your tickets over at wait for it, OG Light, LITE, bracketnight.com. We will see you March 16th at Longleaf Swine, and we will catch you later.
Beer, basketball, bourbon, brackets, deuces.